Happy Monday, everybody, which means it is a mix in a water Monday. And joining us today is former Gamecock offensive lineman Mike Matulis to break down the weekend that was, to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Mike, I'm not saying everything's solved from a week ago. However, there's much more good to talk about this Monday in comparison to what we saw last weekend against North Carolina.
Agreed 100%. Improvements were made. So, yes, there's more that, we can do to get better as a team, but there was a lot of improvements made. I thought Spencer Rattler looked good again. I mean, I thought he looked great last week. Thought he looked good again this week. Saw a couple other things and some new players coming up, and I thought that they looked good. Some, glimpse into the future a little bit. I like that running back 24. Thought he looked good, ran hard. And then, of course, that freshman quarterback, he went out there and he looked pretty good. So a lot of stuff to be excited for. I guess kind of the bad, I think that we were off to a rocky start. It took us a little bit to kind of get the momentum going. I think that's going to be something we'll need to definitely do next week against Georgia. And then a big thing, too, with the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think that we got better as the game went on, but I think it's something that we need to do and to define ourselves kind of early in the game, going forward.
Yeah, you mentioned quarterback Lenore Sellers coming off the bench, true freshman, 4 for 4, over 80 yards and 2 touchdown passes, while transfer running back number 24, Mario Anderson, getting to see some work this week. Specifically, bring it back to the offensive line here. Number one, they did their job by keeping Rattler upright. I think South Carolina allowed 2 sacks, but a lot of that came from backups later on in the game in that fourth quarter. We saw them change things up a little bit mid-game. You saw the 2 freshmen go out there. You had Big Tree, Aluatosin Babalade, then you had Javon Baugh out there as well. I bring that up, though, Mike, because naturally from this fan base, and you see it, and you understand how much they care, how excited they are when it comes to a recruiting standpoint, too. So they know every 4-star, 5-star, probably know what their friggin' favorite color and lunch was back in high school, for crying out loud. I say that because naturally they want to see these talented guys get onto the field. And for some of them, you will see that quicker than others. You've seen that more so on the defensive side of the ball, whether it be this season with Jalen Kilgore or going back to last year with DQ Smith and Nicky Manwari. I bring that up because when you look at the offensive line position, as someone who's played the position 2 games in now, what are some things that stood out? I don't know how much you were paying attention to those 2 in particular, but just talk about the notion of how challenging it is as a freshman to be able to come in there and some of the things that they were able to accomplish last night as they get ready to potentially be in the starting lineup again as they head out to Athens next weekend.
The game moves a lot different than it does in high school. So, yes, to get out there and to, in front of a loud and strong fan base, something that you have to kind of pick up quick and adjust to quick. And certainly I think that the improvements from last week, as far as, a lot of it looked like some missed assignments last week. It looks like we tightened things up a little bit. But I think the one thing, and it's, yes, we have some younger people out there, but it's still, we still need to make more improvements for next week because it's, it's a big game. So those adjustments are going to have to be made. And I think that line of scrimmage needs to look a little bit more momentum on our side. I guess we need more push on our side. It's not, I'm not talking blowing everybody 5 feet off the ball, but just a couple inches just to give a little bit of push off that line of scrimmage.
Former Gamecock offensive lineman. I know you know him very well, Garrett Anderson. He was on the GC Live postgame show with me last night, and we were just breaking down the fact that there were obviously in the first half a lot of screen passes, a lot of quick passes. I know you're not Dal Loggins, so I know what you say isn't exactly in stone, but as an offensive lineman, do you feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact of you have 2 true freshmen out there, and what can the quick game do to be able to hopefully improve the confidence of some of those younger offensive linemen and the offensive linemen as a whole as they try to build a rapport together.
That, what you said, was what I think was a huge difference maker. Don't ask them to drop back, move the pocket a little bit, slide it, give Spencer Rattler a little bit more time. He can throw on the run. So I think that adjustment that they made, it's going to give those guys more confidence moving forward, because it's a tough thing to take on the chin. 9 sacks in a game last week, so I think that is a good adjustment made by the coach.
When you do have younger guys out there, whether it be freshmen, whether it be sophomores, I mean, look, Nick Gargiulo, we know the guy has plenty of experience, but now that he has a couple games under his belt and understands what it's like to play in Williams-Brice Stadium, what can that confidence do? Because I know there's going to be some people that will say, well, they should do that against Furman. They should do that against FCS teams. I understand that, but as you know, because you've gone up against it as well, games like that, and again, look, that's not a TikTok tech school. Furman's pretty good for FCS, number 6 going into last night. What can last night do, though, for the psyche after allowing 9 sacks from the previous week?
It gives them that confidence boost that you just said. They didn't give up 9 sacks like they did last week. So going forward, it just shows that, okay, we made some adjustments. Those adjustments work. Now how can we bring that, into play next week? Because it'll be a bigger test, certainly. But I think that if we can still do some of what we did last night, we could still put up a good fight against Georgia.
Dow Loggins, what have you liked so far with what he's been doing? Because, again, it's a small sample size, right? But it feels like what we're seeing him do, it's allowing Spencer Rattler to play more free. But just as an offense as a whole, is there anything that you've noticed through these first 2 games? Maybe more so with the second game, since they were able to actually give the quarterback some time.
Well, I think you said exactly what I was going to. I think the main and really the big thing that I noticed is it's allowed Spencer Rattler to really play ball, which he has done, I think, very well the last 2 weeks.
When you see your quarterback out there, I think his completion percentage is just over 83%. I mean, what he's doing right now, it's 11 incompletions. I think he's 55 of 66. I should have this in front of me, for just under 700 yards. And then, of course, the 3 touchdown passes to go along with the rushing touchdown. Gaining that confidence as an offensive line, I'm sure it's huge when you see your quarterback be able to do that. But what is that like when you do have a quarterback playing as well as he's played through the first 2 games, knowing that next week, hey, look, we have to play our best ball? That has to give you some extra motivation, knowing that if you get your job done, you're feeling pretty good about number 7 back there.
That's it right there. It's more of a drive for us to get better as an offensive line. At least, when I was playing. So Connor Shaw did it plenty of times. So it's very easy to rally behind that and pick up your game, going into a big game next week.
What is it like, though, when they break down film and you're grading things out, right? Maybe it's not the prettiest still. Maybe your coach is going to let you know, hey, look, everyone's going to tell you how good you were this past week. But what is it like now going from being able to get that first win, and then as you've done many times before, getting ready for a very tough Georgia team and obviously the 2-time defending national champs?
The game plan really can't change too much. Sometimes we put something on a pedestal and you start kind of making something out to be more than what it really is. And I'm not taking anything from Georgia, really good team, but at the end of the day, we got to go out and play football. So, you got to make sure you're completing your assignments, you're making your right reads. And, at the end of the day, you got to go out and play tough football. And, that's what we'll have to do going into Saturday, hit them in the mouth.
I don't know how much you paid attention to the defense, but it seemed like they did a better job of at least being more physical. It seemed like the defensive line, as the game went on, they got better. I put this out actually on Sunday on Gamecock Central. Furman is a team that before Saturday's game, they rushed for over 200 yards going back to last season in 3 straight games, rushed for over 100, nearly 150 against Clemson. But going back to 2021, like in their last 19 games, they rushed for at least 100 yards. That wasn't the case. What can that do from a defensive standpoint, you feel like, just from a confidence standpoint, as you get ready to go up against a Georgia team who, look, obviously they have some talented skill guys on the outside, but we know what their MO has always been. That's being able to run the football.
It's a win's always a good confidence booster. And, I think that Furman team was a lot tougher than what some people may have given them credit for. But at the end of the day, it was still, in my opinion, a little bit rocky start on both sides. So I definitely go back, look at the film, see what they did right, fix what they did wrong, and stay focused going into the following week. Not riding on too high of a horse from beating Furman the way we did, but enough to give us the confidence that, okay, when we do the right things happen. And that's what I think that second half really showed. When they started doing the right things started kind of falling into place, and they look good.
We mentioned the two offensive linemen, and I know every position's different, but at the same time, too, it probably all goes back to the same point of the game slowing down for these guys. Two offensive linemen, you look at Nick Harbor scoring the touchdown, everyone's saying, where's the 5-star? Well, he was in the end zone last night. Yeah. And then, of course, Sellers getting out there as well. You've been around it before. We had Garrett talk about it last week, and that was only one game, right? You have preseason camp, and then you have one game. You're going up against a Power 5 team. What would you just tell people on the outside that are eager, as we were talking about before, are eager to see some of these younger guys who in practice, they're still trying to figure things out? Because you've gone through it. You were a freshman, of course, at one point, but at the same time, too, you were, 21, 22 years old, and you have a freshman coming in, and you're trying to figure it out. What would you tell people?
Give them time. I mean, when I came in, I was still playing. I mean, I played my true freshman year like 275, 280. And, looking back, I mean, I wouldn't have changed a thing in the world, but to let somebody develop a little bit longer, in the weight room and practice and just, overall experience, I think it'll do wonders for them in the long run. So, it's tough for fans to be patient because, everybody wants something now, but I think there was a lot of good things happening last night with some of the younger players that just shows us and gives us something to be excited for in the future.
How special has it been to watch Rattler, though?
Very. He's definitely exceeded my expectations so far for the year, and I give him all the credit in the world, especially last week. I mean, he's played some damn good football.
What do you think with last week, right? I mean, he gave South Carolina a chance. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, I mean, South Carolina, they were able to get into the red zone. If they were able to give him just a little bit more time, maybe that game went a little differently, especially in those red zone situations. What does it say about him, though, to come back the way he did last night when we've seen before with other teams, right? Some quarterbacks, they see that and it throws their game off. You might be, exiting the pocket a little bit earlier because that internal clock in your head's telling you, oh boy, I might not have as much time. To you, as someone that has played this game and understands that it's not easy when you have a guy who obviously you were used to blocking, big boys falling on you when you're a quarterback. What does that tell you about this guy?
Good, poised. I mean, he's consistent, and that's what you need. You can't have somebody that's up and down and up and down, and so consistent through the bad, consistent through the good. And I think that'll do well for him as we progress into the season.
All right, Mike. Let's just bring it back to talking about Georgia. What do you want to see next week? It's so easy to say, all right, score more points, this and that. But in your opinion, what does South Carolina need to do next week if they want to talk about having an opportunity to pull off an upset again in between the hedges?
They have to be physical early. I mean, that's, I right or wrong, I don't know, but from me, an outsider looking in, they've got to dominate that line of scrimmage early. We need points on the board quick. It can't be a slow start, in my opinion. I mean, we've got to come out quick. I mean, I'm going to be excited, though. I think it's going to be a great game. I think that we're going to put up a bigger fight than what people are expecting to. Usually we always do. Usually we play up pretty well to some of our opponents. So, I think it's going to be a good game.
Once again, Mike Matulis, former Gamecock offensive lineman, joining us today on
Thank you
Mix
for
in a
having me.
Water Monday. Mike, appreciate you hopping on with us.
Go Cox.